Ever feel like your mind is like a runaway train of thoughts? We're diving into the radical idea today that you are not those thoughts.
Yeah.
Buckle up, because we're going to unpack a Q&A with a spiritual teacher who claims you are not your thoughts. And trust me, they make it relatable.
Yeah, what I think is really intriguing about this is how this teacher uses the simple act of observation to kind of make this point.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's so simple.
Yeah, and they suggest that if you can observe something, you can't be that thing.
Exactly.
It's such a simple...
It's so simple, but it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let me think about that for a second.
Yeah.
So, like, watching a movie, you're aware of the plot, the characters, the drama unfolding on screen. But you are not the movie.
Right.
You're the observer experiencing it.
Yes. And I love how they don't just stop at thoughts. They apply the same logic to our bodies or feelings, even our senses.
Right. Our senses, too.
I mean, think about it. We see our reflection.
It's true.
We feel sensations, but isn't there a deeper, I don't know, like a deeper I that's doing the seeing and the feeling?
Yeah.
I think they even use the example of like the difference between I and myself in the source material.
Right.
It's like we are more than just the physical or the mental. There's an essence, there's an awareness beyond those, beyond those things.
Okay, that makes sense. But like, how do we reconcile that with the feeling of me that we've kind of carried our whole lives? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I feel like me. I feel like this is me and this is my experience. So the source kind of tackles this, I think, by suggesting that from a young age, we're almost programmed to identify with labels.
Right, like we're constantly being defined.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get given names, we get slotted into like personality types, we're categorized constantly. And I think without realizing it, we begin to believe those labels define us. It's almost like we limit ourselves to those boxes.
Totally. It's like being told you're the artist or you're the logical one, and suddenly those become the boundaries of who we think we can be.
Yes. And it's not that those labels are inherently bad or anything. Right. It's just that they can limit our understanding of ourselves, The real freedom, and I love how the teacher says this, the real freedom comes from recognizing the awareness that exists like beyond those constructs.
Yes.
Like it's about recognizing the vastness of you that can't be contained by any label.
Yes.
You're not just the artist. You're not just the logical one. You are so much more than that.
Right. So if we're not our thoughts, not our bodies, not these labels, then the big question is, who are we? Who are we really?
Yeah, and this is where things get really, really interesting, because the source kind of points to pure consciousness or awareness as that true nature of who we are.
Okay. Now, I know that might sound a little out there, pure consciousness.
Right.
But let's try to ground it a little bit. The source talks about meditation as a way to kind of experience this separation firsthand, to actually touch that awareness.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think that's a really, really great point, because it's like, think about what happens when you meditate. Thoughts still arise, It's not like you can just completely shut them off.
Right.
But instead of getting like swept away by them,
Right.
You almost become the observer.
So you're saying, like, instead of being in the thought storm, we're watching it from a calmer space.
Precisely. Imagine like thoughts are like cars passing by on a busy street. When you're meditating, you're no longer merging with each car, like driving off with it. You're simply on the sidewalk, observing the traffic of your mind without getting caught in it.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this idea of not being our thoughts could actually be like a game changer.
Oh, absolutely.
It could change how we experience everything.
100%.
But there's another layer here, right? The teacher mentioned something called like collective consciousness. What's that all about?
Ooh, okay. So this is where it gets really, really mind-bending. Okay. What if, and just stay with me here, what if our thoughts aren't solely our own?
Okay.
But we're also tapping into like a universal library of thoughts and feelings.
Okay.
That's kind of the essence of collective consciousness.
Interesting. So instead of each of us having entirely separate thoughts, it's more like we're all connected to this larger network.
Exactly. And our emotional state, right? Like our emotional state acts as our library card, granting us access to specific sections of this universal library.
Oh, I like that.
You feel joy and you're drawn to joyful thoughts. feel fear, and that's where your attention goes.
That's so interesting.
Isn't it? And this actually explains why people experiencing like similar emotional states often describe like similar thought patterns, They're tuned into like a similar frequency within that collective space.
Wow. So you're saying our emotions aren't just personal. It's like they're like tuning forks, vibrating with and attracting similar frequencies from this collective field. That's kind of wild.
It is wild. It is wild. It definitely opens up a whole new way of thinking about our inner worlds, doesn't it?
It really does. So if our thoughts can come from this shared space, does that mean that like even our internal dialogue, the voice in our head, isn't as me as we think it is?
That's a great point. That's a really great point. And it's actually something that the teacher addresses directly. They say that our inner voice, much like our thoughts and emotions, is something that we can observe, and therefore it cannot be the entirety of who we are.
It's true.
It's
like that saying, I think, therefore I am, suddenly has a whole new meaning.
Doesn't it? It really does.
Because even when our minds are quiet, even when that inner voice takes a break, that awareness of I am, that observer is still present.
It's always there.
It's always there. So if we're not our thoughts, and we're not even the voice in our heads, then who's left standing when everything else kind of falls away?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
That's the million-dollar question. And that's what we're going to uncover as we dive deeper. Okay, so we've established that we're not our thoughts, we're not our inner monologues, we're something that exists beyond them, this observer, this awareness. But then, like, what do we do with that information? How does that change how we navigate the world?
Yeah, that's where the rubber meets the road, right? And I think what the teacher really emphasizes here is that it's less about thinking our way into this and more about like embodying this truth.
So it's not about achieving like a mind free of thoughts, some kind of like Zen blank slate.
No, not at all. It's really about like a shift in identification. It's about recognizing that our thoughts are like waves on the ocean. They come, they go. We can choose to ride them, or we can choose to simply observe their ebb and flow from the shore of our awareness.
So less about getting caught in the riptide of every thought and more about like maybe choosing which waves we actually want to surf.
Exactly. And I think, one thing the teacher really underscores is the power of being present, being aware, and being still.
Yeah.
Like simply being with what is, without judgment. That's how we tap into that deeper sense of self.
Yeah. It makes me think about like, when I've tried meditation in the past, and I always get like really frustrated that my mind won't just like quiet down.
Right.
But if I think about it as simply observing those thoughts without judgment,
yeah,
it takes the pressure off a little bit.
Absolutely. And the teacher actually like compares it to building a muscle.
Okay.
The more we practice witnessing our thoughts and emotions without judgment, the easier it becomes to detach from them and then react, differently in our everyday lives.
So instead of being ruled by our anxiety about an upcoming presentation, for example, we can kind of like acknowledge those anxious thoughts, let them be, and then choose how we want to move forward.
Precisely. And, they also emphasize that this isn't like an overnight transformation. It's an ongoing practice.
Yeah.
I mean, they even say that, they still catch themselves getting caught up in the spin cycle of their thoughts sometime.
Okay, that makes me feel better. I thought I was the only one.
Oh, no, we all do it.
Oh, thank goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
But, if we can get even a little bit better at tapping into that observer self, that awareness, I feel like, I don't know, it could change how we relate to our inner critic, for example.
Oh, now that's a good one. Now that is a powerful application of this, right? Because if we can truly grasp that those self-critical thoughts are not the ultimate truth of who we are, they lose their grip on us.
It's like realizing that the volume knob on that inner critic has been cranked up way too loud, and what if we could turn it down?
Yes. What if we could choose a different soundtrack altogether? Maybe one that's a little kinder, a little more encouraging. Yeah. That's the potential here.
Imagine that, just choosing a mental playlist that supports us instead of tearing us down. That's a powerful image. But how do we actually make that shift? How do we start changing the channel on those negative thought patterns?
I think it really starts with recognizing that we have a choice. We don't have to buy into every thought that crosses our minds. We can question those thoughts. We can challenge them. We can even replace them with more empowering ones.
So instead of letting that inner voice tell us we're not good enough, We can consciously choose to focus on maybe our strengths, our accomplishments, the good that we bring to the world.
Exactly, exactly. And that's where this concept of not being our thoughts becomes truly, truly liberating. Because it gives us the power to choose our own thoughts, to create our own realities, and ultimately to live a life that's more aligned with who we truly are at our core.
It's like we've been handed the keys to our own mental kingdom, but we never realized we had the power to open the doors and actually explore what's inside.
What an insightful way to put it. It's about reclaiming our inherent power, our birthright as conscious creators. And I think this brings us to a really crucial question that the teacher poses. And that is, if your thoughts aren't truly you, then what might become possible if you weren't so fused with them?
That is a powerful question. What if by detaching from those limiting thoughts, we unlock hidden potential, creativity, a level of peace we never even thought possible?
I think that's the heart of it, right? This isn't just about understanding a concept intellectually. It's about stepping into a new way of being in the world. It's about recognizing the vastness within each of us.
It's like we've been looking at the world through this tiny little peephole.
Yeah.
And this whole expansive vista was waiting for us to just step back and open the window.
Right.
What
a beautiful analogy. And it actually makes me think of a point that the teacher made towards the end of the Q&A, which is, this isn't about achieving some kind of blissful state where we never experience a negative thought again. It's about changing our relationship to those thoughts.
So it's not about becoming some kind of emotionless robot.
Right.
But rather just recognizing that we have the power to choose how we respond to our emotions.
Exactly. We can acknowledge those feelings of, fear, doubt, insecurity, all part of the human experience.
Yeah.
Without letting them dictate our actions, our choices, our whole lives.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we are the sky and emotions are kind of like these weather patterns that move through.
I like that. We can choose to dance in the rain or grab an umbrella, but we don't have to let the storm drown us.
Exactly. And I think when we start to see ourselves as separate from those passing storms, we create space for something really magical to happen, which is the emergence of our true selves, our authentic selves.
That reminds me of something else that the teacher mentioned.
Yeah.
Which is that, maybe the true you, the one beyond the thoughts, beyond the labels, is far more, expansive and capable than we can even imagine.
Yes. Yeah. That I think is precisely the, thought-provoking note that I think this whole deep dive leaves us with. To quote the source directly, what if the true you is far more expansive and capable than you ever imagined?
It's both humbling and exhilarating at the same time, isn't it?
It really is.
Like this whole journey of self-discovery is just beginning.
It's a lifelong adventure, that's for sure.
It really is.
And I think, the more we can approach it with curiosity, with openness, with a willingness to kind of question our assumptions, the more we uncover about ourselves and the nature of reality itself, really.
I love that. So to our listeners, if this deep dive sparked something in you, if it left you questioning, wondering, even a little bit excited about the possibilities, lean into that.
Yeah.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deeper into the vast, mysterious, and ultimately liberating truth of who you truly are. Until next time.
Absolutely. And remember, the journey starts with a single thought.
Ooh.
What will you choose to think next?